Hello and welcome to We the People. I'm Sarah Jacob. It's been a busy week for those studying the conundrum of free speech and its limitations. This week we saw the arrest of India's leading fact-checker Mohammad Zubair over a 2018 tweet. Zubair's arrest is based on a 4-year-old tweet in which he shared a screen grab from a 1983 movie depicting the changed name of a fictional hotel from Hanuman to Honeymoon. He's now facing 14 days judicial custody after already spending 5 days in police custody. Ironically, the arrest was made even as the Prime Minister joined global leaders G7 to pledge to protect free speech. It's also been a week when a judge who was a part of the Supreme Court bench that slammed the BJP's Nupur Sharma for her comments on Prophet Muhammad were at the receiving end of personal attacks on social media for their judgments. Tonight on We the People, we're asking, free speech, a constitutional guarantee, but what's the reality on the ground in India today? And is there an unprecedented weaponizing of government agencies? Government agencies being used against human rights activists, journalists, and government critics in the country. Joining us on We the People, Meghna Des, author and journalist, Paran Naqvi, writer and activist, Ashutosh, senior journalist, a political analyst, Gurmeher Kaur, author and activist, and we'll have PKD Nambiar, political analyst who supports the BJP. We also have actor Ketaki Chitale, who was arrested for allegedly making a derogatory post against the NCP chief, Sharad Pawar. Chitale was arrested on the 15th of May. She spent over 30 days in jail before she was granted bail. Some 15 cases at least have been filed against the actor. First, let me start. Meghna Des, author and journalist, to you first. India's ranking on the World Press Freedom Index has declined. It's fallen sharply from 142 to 150 in 2022, in a year. And Zubair's arrest on these frivolous charges, perhaps just another hard-hitting blow to free speech and democracy already in India?
Done to death, I would say. It has been discussed for as long as we can remember, whether we have the complete free speech to say anything we want, whether there are reasonable restrictions. All of that we have defined in our constitution, and the courts are the ones that set precedents and define it further. What this is really about is dissent. There are only two kinds of people who need free speech right now, which is people who question authority and artists who are pushing the boundaries of what is accepted by society. And it needs to be said that right now our restrictions to free speech are being very selectively used. And of course it is used against those who dissent. And that is, I think, really the debate here, whether dissent is allowed anymore or not. Or can a 2018 tweet, which has been complained by an anonymous account, just make you go to jail? It's a very interesting debate that has come up again, but I think we shouldn't fall for the same tropes all over again, where we are discussing how much free speech is good free speech and how much is bad free speech.
You had actually done some research into this tweet, how this came up, what was this tweet? It's an anonymous tweet. Till now, we don't know, and the authorities, the police who have acted based on this tweet have not been able to find who this person is, who based on whose tweet they have arrested Zubair?
Yeah, so there was this anonymous account which had come up. The first instance of when this news came out was ANI reporting on it. They tweeted about it and they mentioned a handle. So I went there and I saw that the person is following 0 accounts but had 1 follower. This was 1 hour after ANI had put out their news update. And the only tweet that they had done was this complaint against Zubair, which was done sometime in June this year. Again, as you have also pointed out, the tweet had a picture from a 1983 movie, which was discovered later by another Twitter handle who revealed that it's from a 1983 movie. It's really bizarre because, why is the Delhi police looking at this anonymous handle, which clearly just joined to do this, which is get offended by a 2018 tweet and then complain to the police about it. Once that account was called out, it started getting a lot of followers and it started tweeting like crazy. And then it was deactivated for a bit. then it was activated again, and today I saw it was active again, then it got deactivated. So I don't know what is going on with that account, whether the police have been able to trace who is behind that account. I have to also point out this is, I feel this is a part of a concerted campaign against Zubair that was launched on Twitter, where they were giving rewards for anyone who files FIRs against Zubair or complaints against him. I feel like this might be one of the manifestations of it.
All right. So, Ashutosh, suppressed, pardon the pun, emphasis on the word suppressing press freedom in India, no country for journalists. I ask this because the RSF report on India press freedom says that there's a crisis in the world's largest democracy. It would almost be laughable if it weren't having such serious ramifications on people's lives. What we just heard about this, this Twitter feed, it was anonymous, it keeps logging off, it gets deleted, it comes back on this Twitter handle, and the police are acting based on that. But Reporters Without Freedoms, in their report, they actually say that, it was very early on that this government took a critical stance vis-a-vis journalists, seeing them as intermediaries. You don't need to, pollute a direct relationship that this government has with supporters. And here you're seeing a case where we have Meghnad, who's basically saying it's acting on dissent.
See, Sarah, I think I was just hearing Justice Pardiwala, the Supreme Court judge. While speaking today, he said that even the dictatorship has a rule of law. Today, what we're witnessing in this country in the name of democracy, the question should be asked whether there is a rule of law or not. Or if there is a rule of law, are there the two sets of rule of laws? First, a rule of law for the Nupur Sharma is different. The rule of law for the Zubair is entirely different. Nupur Sharma said something, and which is objectionable. And it has repercussions also because of her statements. More than 15 countries asked India to apologize and clarify. And because of her statement, the violence did happen in Kanpur and other places. Because of her statement, whatever happened in Udaipur, everybody knows, and Amravati. But till now, no action has been taken. And even the Supreme Court has been very scathing on in his observations. But did anything happen? Did Delhi police had gone and arrested her? And Delhi police in its statement very clearly said कि आप कुछ लोगों को तो गिरफ्तार कर लेते हैं, कुछ लोगों पर हाथ डालने की आपकी हिम्मत नहीं पड़ती है. So despite Supreme Court double bench such a scathing comment, nothing has moved. But
except
in case
the
of
judges
Zubair,
themselves became victim to comments against them on social media.
Yeah, in case of Zubair, he has tweeted, a movie was made in 1983. He tweeted in 2018 and arrested in 2022, and for which he could have got a bail from the court. And before arresting him, the police has to make a clarification. Because according to the Supreme Court, anybody in any case where the punishment is not more than 7 years, before you can't arrest. But here he is not even getting even the bail from the court also. And he has been sent to judicial custody for 2 days, for 2 weeks. So the issue is whether there is a rule of law in this country or not. Whether the fundamental right of mine and yours
is it equal for all?
Be defined on the basis of on which side you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's worrying. PKD Nambiar, this is confounding. Is it, different strokes for different folks? What is the logic that you have a 4-year-old tweet of Zubair's can hamper communal harmony, but Yati Narsinganand's inflammatory speeches made just months ago, they don't. That you can have Nupur Sharma roaming freely despite her comments, but, a fact checker arrested because of a tweet from 4 years ago. PKD Nambiar, does this show an indiscriminate use of the government's wings and departments against political opponents, dissenters, and selective government machinery that is meant to serve the people, not to wage a war against the people based on petty issues? Because otherwise it should be the same treatment for all.
Sarah, I'm first and foremost, I am a free speech absolutist, and I think there is no ifs and buts about it. It's all about that if a person should be free in a democratic country like us, should be able to speak his mind loud and clear.
But I'm sorry, if it turns hateful or incites violence, then yes, there's a line between a hate speech and free speech. But I don't go ahead. I've understood you're a proponent of free speech.
May I?
Yes,
I'll tell you
ahead.
that. So I'm absolutely saying that my statement was something like this: if he is speaking the truth. So the hate and free speech has nothing to do with each other. So like if I abuse you, then it is a different story. So that is something like, that is the reason we have a court of law, there are judicial system and etc. But I am here for free speech. But you need to understand, in the first constitutional amendment in this country has done for free speech. Nobody other than our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, was the then Prime Minister. In 1951, the Article 19 was the first, free speech was the first one which was amended in the Constitution. So there is some, it's basically to bring restrictions on the free speech. But then there are elements of, now we are talking about Nupur Sharma, and she has got a different kind of application of law on her. Subair is treated differently. I think here is the hypocrisy of our thought process. In your own television channel or in multiple channels where I was present, and I'm sure that one of the show even Ashutosh Ji was present, there are Islamic scholars even today saying that what Nupur Sharma said was not wrong. So that is not something like you and me can speak today, because it's a matter of sub judice. Let the court decide. With regard to Mr. Subair's case, so it is not one incident or a two incident. And if it's a well-known fact that more than 28 across the social media, it's roaming around that it's more than 28 tweets which he deleted himself from his own account, and many of those tweets were mocking
Mr. Nambiar, there may be many cases, but the police has acted against him based on this one case. So we cannot talk about many cases. There may be many cases against me, but what have you charged me with? My question to you simply is not this. I'm not talking about whether there were apologists for Islam on any TV channels. Should the law be the same for all, or does it change depending on if you are a spokesperson for the BJP, or if you're a dissenter, or a journalist, or a human rights activist?
I think you said it actually. I think there is the law applicable to every place. So you also need to understand most of this law and order, even Ashutosh was talking about that the states are responsible for the law and order and even booking all these kind of people. In this country is completely not ruled by BJP. There are many South Indian states, for an example, in Telangana, I can list out the names. Even the so-called left parties in the state of Kerala, they have booked so many people, including a former MLA just 2 days ago. So I think let's not be selective. Look at, if you
all
wanted
right,
to
let's
have
not
a
be
proper
selective.
discussion.
I think you're right. I think there's a good point to bring in Ketaki Chitale. Unfortunately, this is happening across the board, but mostly in in the
That's
case of
that's the way you
with
look at
this
it, because
government.
you are
Also, to be
selective.
fair, they have more states, so maybe it's happening in all states, and more states come under the BJP. But Ketaki Chitale joins us now. She was arrested allegedly for a tweet that was allegedly, against the NCP chief, right, Sharad Pawar, and she spent over 30 days in jail. Ketaki, I'm just going to start by asking you what actually happened. You posted a post and then you ended up getting arrested.
I myself have no idea as to what exactly happened, in the sense I just copy pasted a post from Facebook and I uploaded it on my profile. And the next thing I know was that the police were at my door, taking me away and arresting me, and that's what I know. Then during that whole ordeal of me being handed over from Kalamboli police station to Thane Police Crime Branch Unit 1, there were a mob of 20 to 25 people. They molested me, they attacked me, they hit me, they threw toxic color at me. Well, under the guise of ink. They have been claiming that it was ink, but it wasn't ink. It was that toxic black chemical color that you get in the market. And there were eggs being thrown, and not only at me, they have assaulted and hit the police as well, which is a grave crime.
Even today, whether you actually did anything wrong, whether you broke any laws, I mean, you have all these FIRs against you, you're still fighting them legally.
Yes, I am fighting those 22 FIRs, which is outrageous to begin with, for just one post, the same post, not even any other different post, the same post. There are 22 FIRs which have been registered all over Maharashtra, out of which I have been bailed out from one of the FIRs. So 21 FIRs are still there.
Wow. And this seems to be like the modus operandi. We see this with across the board. But do you feel burned by this? As in, do you feel like, perhaps you should just steer clear of politics, focus on your acting? Or do you think you should be true to yourself, where you're an informed, educated person, you're political?
I'm sorry, but I haven't stepped into any kind of politics. What kind of politics have I stepped into?
No, I mean like
a poem which was written by someone else. How is that stepping into politics? I mean, don't you or anyone out there copy paste something and post on their Facebook page or profile? Every single person does that. Whoever is there on Facebook.
So you believe this is your right in
into politics? And what kind of lesson are you referring to?
Do you feel in any way that like you self-censor, or you think about what you post about, or you should censor?
I mean, I don't just post anything randomly. Nobody does that. Everyone thinks before posting something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as a Homo sapien with a brain, an advanced brain, everyone thinks and then uploads, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of a lesson am I, like, I'm not following you, I'm sorry, but I'm not following this question whatsoever.
Refreshing what you're saying, because most people, maybe out of fear, perhaps, I'm not in their shoes, often say, we didn't do this, we didn't post that. It's refreshing to hear you say, of course, you think about everything that you post, and you're obviously standing by. But I just want to ask you, lastly then, how important is free speech to you? Where do you think one should draw the line?
It has already been drawn by the Constitution of India. There are, I mean, in our Constitution, there is a freedom of speech and expressions, but there are exceptions to it. So I'm nobody to decide where to draw a line, because the line has already been drawn.
Yeah.
And I haven't violated any kind of, line whatsoever. I have, whatever I posted was according to the freedom of speech and expression. I cannot help that people misinterpreted it in a certain way, and they put all these acts behind me and put me inside bars. I was behind bars for 21 days for no rhyme or reason, because Pawar is not a religion.
All right, Ketki, thank you so much, and all the best. More power to you, and I mean all the best for you in this legal journey. It's still going on. I want to bring in Gurmeher Kaur here. She's a former Delhi University student who became a national name, became in the national limelight when she joined a social media campaign against the ABVP after we saw violent clashes at Delhi University's Ramjas College. Way back in April 2016, there was a video uploaded to Facebook by the Voice of Ram featuring Gurmeher. It advocated peace between India and Pakistan. This video then went viral when she came forward with the message against the violence done against the ABVP. You were trolled. Thank you for joining us, Gurmeher. You were incredibly trolled with threatening messages. Your father died fighting militants in Jammu and Kashmir, died for India in 1999. You eventually withdrew from the campaign, left Delhi 4 months. How have you been, Gurmeher? How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. And well, I've been doing fine. I've been doing well.
Great.
Just
I'm glad to hear that.
Gurmeher, yeah.
It's been a few years. Has any action been taken against those who threatened you, very serious threats?
No, absolutely not.
So nothing happened.
Absolutely
You
not.
went through everything, all the trauma that you had to, nothing happened till then. Let me ask you what
Nothing.
I asked Ketki. Do you feel this was an attempt to censure you, self-censor you, that, that to try and make you, I think you were 18 then, that the youth should not be political, should not voice their views?
100%. And I think and I think we have been talking about freedom of speech, and we have been talking about, concepts of hate speech. And whenever this has been brought up to me, that, you've been trolled, and one does not obviously like to be trolled, one does not like to be abused. And on the other hand, you do talk about freedom of expression, and you do talk about freedom of opinion. Now over these 5 years, there are also these certain things that I've genuinely thought about and, solidified for myself. And it is this concept of this, the sort of conversation that is spoken about in binaries, which it is not, is this hate speech versus free speech. Now, I completely believe that freedom of opinion, expression, it's a cornerstone of human rights. It's a pillar of, any free democratic societies. And, it's also like like Meghnad said, it is a right that supports, it is a fundamental, it's a right that supports other fundamental rights, such as dissent, peaceful assembly, being able to participate in public affairs. Like Ketaki said, she wants to participate in public affairs. She likes the poem. She wants to say it, right? So she should have the freedom to say it.
Absolutely.
Now, when you ask me about trolls, something is very important to know, that this sort of, hate speech in India is very targeted. It is very organized. It's not organic.
Yeah.
And there has been, enough research that's been done on, the extravagant ways of how it's organized, and the use of troll armies. And even in Zubair's case, similar armies are being used. And this is, again, not a natural case.
It's a predictable pattern you're saying that we're seeing out over and over again. As in your case, we saw the Union Minister of State for Home Affairs, Kiran Rijiju, commenting on your video, saying that political forces were behind your statement, spoiling the minds of students, basically implying that you cannot have a mind of your own. Imagine you've lost your father who died fighting for India, but you cannot have a mind of your own is the implication there. We had the former cricketer Virender Sehwag, trying to ridicule you. Farah Naqvi, is this, targeted, organized? This has serious consequences. Like, for example, even Zubair's arrest, does it not? Because it now bestows a troll army, people who are, anonymous. You can have someone arrested based on an anonymous troll, and this army now has the conviction that they can, shut someone up like Gurmeher. They could bring a top journalist or a functionary to their feet by highlighting any single tweet.
Absolutely. So let me pick up on something that a lot of your panelists said, and say I agree and disagree with them in part and whole, and respond to your question, which is that Mr. Nambiar has talked about being a free speech absolutist. And perhaps, in another time and place, and if we were all living in a bubble, we would all love to be free speech absolutists. But to pick up on what you asked, is that this is no longer, it's not a contextless situation. We are living in an extremely volatile and a very majoritarian environment. And the signals of intolerance for any kind of speech are in fact coming from our political class. And the idea that there are facts and there is truth, it's all being unraveled, and it's all subject to a very contentious debate, particularly on social media. So I would say that we are at a very grave crossroads.
Yes.
I believe that the Constitution, yes, everybody has cited and quoted from the Constitution. We must remember that the reasonable restrictions, and it was rightly pointed out that in fact the very first amendment to our Constitution, barely 16 months after the Constitution became our Constitution, Nehru moved the amendment to have reasonable restrictions on free speech. And what are these reasonable restrictions? I mean, it's public order, it's morality, it's decency, but all of this is going to change with time. And we have to keep changing with those times. What happens with these laws? Now, this is the Constitution, but there are legal provisions. There is the IPC, there is 153, 153A, 295A, and others that restrict our freedom to speak. For example, we cannot talk about misogyny and violence against women, and by the same measure, we should not be able to talk about instigating violence against minorities and Muslims, and that ought to be prosecutable. I do disagree that that everybody needs to be prosecuted and be taken to hold off to jail. But the fear is that the free speech provisions are subjective. The law itself is subjective.
Yes.
Ergo, there is a great deal of power that the executive and the state machinery has to interpret this.
Yes.
When that power is not exercised impartially is when we have the kind of situation that we have today. I would like to disagree just in words with one of your speakers. I don't believe that Mohammed Zubair is being targeted for dissent. He would not call himself a dissenter. He is a fact checker. He is a journalist, and it is facts that are being prosecuted. It is his facts that are being prosecuted. I mean, obviously, I think many people on this panel would agree with the absurdity, and not just absurdity, the immorality of what has happened to Zubair. Nobody deserves that.
Is being targeted because he's a fact checker.
Yes.
PKD Nambiar, lastly, just closing up, this, as Gurmeher has pointed out, it's targeted, it's organized. The whole might of the state seems to, come tumbling down on you if you are pointing out facts, if you're a journalist, even if you dissent. PKD Nambiar, when political and ideological fights take the form of the citizen against the state, that is extremely worrying in a country like ours. Closing argument, please, on this.
Well, I think this show is a very, very the right way of conducting a show on free speech. You had this young girl, Chitkale, who spent her 30 days in the jail just putting up a post. But do you know that even when she was arrested, she was in the jail, there was no prime time shows on her.
She's on prime time right now. She hasn't magically shown up, Mr. Nambiar. We have invited her because we believe she has... surely. This is ridiculous. She's on a prime time show.
Zara, in your shows, my free speech is always been violated. So, if you give me my free speech time,
I cannot allow you to make a comment like this, which is absolutely no fact.
When you say that, it's only not about
How
you.
Can she
you are
not
not the NDTV is not the world, Zara. There are thousands of media houses. I am only saying that her cause was not being taken up by the media in general, the way it has been discussed, the way people are putting up primetime shows for Zubair. I am only saying the hypocrisy of the pseudo-secular forces, including the media, some of the media friends, that they don't see both the side of the mirror. So that is where the main problem is. When then it comes to the last point, because you asked for a closing comment, the closing comment is this: in the Supreme Court once said, each case will depend on the facts of that each case. So there cannot applications of the law will depend on the fact of each case. So there is no way you can parallel to one case to another, one state to another state. That is what the Supreme Court.
All right. Thank you. All right. We are completely out of time, but I think every day really asks us all to question what the essential contents are of free speech as a right in a civilized, in a constitutional democracy, and what the reasonable limitations should be attached to that. Thank you all for joining us tonight on We the People. Bye-bye.